It's just there are businesses that do it in Saskatoon, and for probably just careful business reasons, we haven't gotten into that in Saskatchewan yet, but I would imagine that we will eventually. But it is available for you if you want to spend the time looking.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been looking to hear you guys have some.
And you're finding that you're just having to do everything component.
Well, it looks like I'm going to build I'm going to buy a tank, and then I'm going to buy a pump, and I'm going to buy a filter, and I'm going to buy, like it's just too hard, right? Like,
yeah.
fortunately, there must be, again, in Germany, it was like, out of the box, here it is.
Yep,
hook it up to your down faucet and
yeah, I agree with you.
wire it, and you're done. So
one of the big challenges we run into in Canada, it's such a mixed blessing, it's like democracy. It can be a mixed blessing in some situations, but one of the challenges we run into in Saskatchewan or in Canada is our standards. And our standards are expensive and exhaustive to get by. So products that are widely used around the world don't always make it to our marketplaces. Why? Because they can't do it. Or they get sold illegally, but you just generally can't do it, and you're not going to get it from traditional distribution chains like myself, because we just can't touch it. But and is the manufacturer in the German side who's building this system, has been running for 20 years, do they care enough to invest the $1 million it takes to get back to ICSA? Maybe not. They got to make a decision and say, is there enough business there, or our great-grandchildren are going to inherit markets? I'm with you. I'm frustrated by some of that.
drain water heat recovery, they just carry that
Drain water heat recovery?
with the copper.
Yeah, that's widely available now. That's encouraging.
Which one do you guys sell?
I don't know the manufacturer's name. I'm sorry. Again, this is my second day as branch manager.
We're his test guinea pigs.
Well, I've been in the industry a great deal of time, and I think everybody would imagine this is not my first day in general, but the product lineup is something like that. And I'm dealing with what they call the Pareto principle, that 80% of my product, or 80% of our dollars will come from 20% of our product. I've selected to look at the 20% first of all, and we're going to work our way through it. Yeah.
With drain water heat capture thingy, how does that actually have to be installed?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, okay, you got a shower, and then you got this thing with the copper things wrapped around it.
Mm-hmm.
How do the two go together?
How do they work together?
Yeah.
It's just a very basic principle of conductivity.
So it is literally attached to the drain?
It's
Or it's just
literally,
somewhere
it is literally wrapped around a section of the drain. That's right. Yeah. Now you'll notice that there was versions of it that came out, which was a copper coil that was wrapped around an existing, for example, retrofit ABS piece of pipe. And just like we talked about earlier with ABS being venting, not so conductive, fundamentally. The one that they have here is a copper section of the drain pipe that's wrapped around copper. Copper has a high rate of conductivity. So the assumption is that as your drain water, the hot water that's coming off and going down the drain, the sanitary sewer, is going down there, that water will conduct its heat out into potable water that's being circulated around that. So there's an example behind you that you'll be able to see. It's fairly clear. It's basically a coil around the drain. So our drain water, our warm and or hot drain water is running down inside this, off into the sewer, and we're able to take potable water and circulate that potable water. Now this is two banks, so we've got this section and the section down below around that, and pick up some degrees on that, and be able to put that
Okay,
back
so
in.
it really, you have to have this on a shower that is on a floor
Yes.
that is above a
Yes.
space. Okay.
But surprisingly more common than you think. We're talking about the leg of your main drain line. That is generally going to be somewhere, or very commonly somewhere accessible.
And this is the 40% one. If you had a height restriction, you could go with the 20% one, which is just a shorter one, right?
Yeah, there's a half stack.
Okay.
All right.
So there's some discussion, just before you get too far on that, because I was giving you guys numbers last time we were here, we did that exercise. Since then, I was told, because our water is typically in a cistern that's in the house, it's already at 65 or 68 degrees. It's not 45 like the outside water you get from Saskatoon.
Excellent.
Good point.
So the delta T is a lot shorter and may not capture as much energy as the CMHC study that I was quoting. I'm still going to put mine in because I think it's so cool. But it may not be 1,400 kilowatts a year, it might be 1,000 only because my water isn't as cold.
There's not as much to recover.
Well, was there other choice in that exercise? Was it LED bulbs or something?
LED bulbs,
We-
that's it.
So
doing
LEDs
them
might
too,
be
so
the way to
yeah.
go.
Interestingly, now that, that said, interestingly, that means a couple of things. That means that your hot water point of use delivery will be quicker, okay? Because you don't have, commonly your cold and hot water lines are running together for some stretches, and so they will wick water or heat away. But you're going to have water that's already warmer, so that's a big energy gain,
Yeah.
And again, widely, northern Saskatchewan's is dotted with cabins over a 3.5-foot crawl space for that same situation.
Yeah.
And, that's not a bad environment. We talk about performance tankless,
Mhm.
that's an ideal scenario.
I just wish I'd have known this stuff, like what you've been in our cottage.
Mhm.
So all the bathrooms they're all in one stack. We
Mhm.
could have done this at the bottom stack and done both showers. It would have been, but we just didn't know about it at the time. It's, I don't know, it's neat technology.
It's low tech, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
a
low-
that's a
it's a
lovely
low
thing
tech
about it.
solution.
There's no maintenance,
Wonderful.
you
Yeah.
put it in, it's there for 50 years, it's
Yeah.
done, right?
Yeah, other than that copper as a drainage pipe doesn't have the same half-life as ABS and the synthetics,
Mhm.
there's an end to that, but nonetheless, certainly it's a simplistic solution. All right.
Okay,
So
I
are
guess,
you gonna put two in?
No, just one. We won't use this will be a guest shower. Guest bathroom.
yeah, just put on the one that's being used the most.
Same with the gray water recycling, we're just gonna have it under that bathroom.
And is it legal?
No, well, we're not gonna have it, but if we were to have it, if it should happen to sneak in after the inspector's gone, that's what we'll have.
I have some notes on gray water, actually, 2010. You probably know this already, the guidelines were released in 2010 now, so that, it's not far off.
Yeah.
There is a net zero home, I believe, in Montreal, and he installed gray water system, but he also installed a sand
Yes.
filtration system as well, which I thought was quite an interesting thing to read about.
Well, it seems the interpretation of code is different by province, because it's one code, isn't it? It's national code yet,
For,
for gray water. So in
it
Saskatchewan,
will be now.
yeah, rainwater is
really the
considered
problem.
gray water in Saskatchewan, and in Alberta, I was at one of the net zero homes, the Mill Creek one.
The one in Edmonton.
Is using rainwater for toilet flushing.
Yeah, it's handled as potable water in Alberta.
Yeah, it's still different.
Our septic guidelines, like our sewage treatment and handling guidelines that were adopted from Alberta,
Yeah.
and are uniform. And that decision, as a matter of fact, just got made. Up until then, everybody had wholeheartedly adopted the Alberta on-site guidelines for septic, and now Saskatchewan's formed its own group and still adopting the Alberta guidelines.
That same BRAC system that I have in here, I first saw it in the home that won Green Home of the Year in Ontario in 2009, and it was running, it was operating, and they were, that's where we learned not to hook it up to the kitchen sink, because they were cleaning out their filters every 2 or 3 weeks, because it was clogging up with food steps from the kitchen sink, which makes some sense, right? But, so it was operating in a award-winning home in Ontario, yet it's not code, so you don't, but how does that work?
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but it is a matter of, the technology catching up with the existing infrastructure, and that means ourselves as wholesalers, but more importantly, the plumbers. The most important life of any of the day of the life of any of these systems in the home is going to be the day they're installed.
So, okay, let's talk about the work of the installer. What does one need to be careful about when one is installing plumbing?
Choosing an installer or just the actual?
Well, leakage is probably the most obvious answer, but tongue in cheek. Maybe if you could just more clearly define the question.
I guess, what am I going to be looking for when I'm trying to find a plumber who, because if we're doing a house like this,
Mhm.
okay, we're concerned about heat recovery, and we're concerned about, water efficiency, and we're concerned about, the possibility of gray water. We didn't mention that, but in case we ever end up doing gray water, that sort of a system, and then, potential, and also if we're also interested in rainwater capture, theoretically, a house is a system. And so all of this stuff really should be integrated and should work cohesively so that you don't end up with problems because, the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's inherently going to be the challenge of change, and that's always been the challenge of change is, as you make changes, everybody's got to catch up. At the end of the day, many of these products that you're going to deal with have got a certification process for installation. And here's why. If I went and spent my life science and my life's earnings on developing a product, I want to make certain that it doesn't hit soil thing or that I don't go broke in warranty. And so a lot of them will have a certification process for their installers, and that information is usually available through the wholesaler. Okay, for like ourselves, some of these products that are new, involved, what I would say component built systems, where I have to get this, and then I have to get this and this and this, and every installation situation is unique. Those almost always have a certification process for the installing. So at the end of the day, how are you protected? Well, you're protected by the manufacturer of the product through their efforts to be careful about their certification. You're protected by the wholesaler because that's one of our legal obligations to being able to move that product through our process is to make sure that that's enforced. That we're using certified installers to put it. That means I can't sell it to Joe Blow. I can't sell it to Joe's Heatham and Cheatham. I can only sell it to the guy who's got the papers that says, you know what, I've invested in this enough to get the certification. In most of the cases, that's. Now, how that all works together in the system, that comes up, that's really a general contractor decision. If you're going to take that on yourself.
Nope.
But
But boy, I'm going to be standing there looking over my shoulder.
Yeah, you put a lot of time in educating yourself for sure, but no, that's going to be a general contractor's decision to be able to parallel think his way through that.
Okay. Okay, so then let me ask you a question about what you're doing here, which is the in-floor heating. And so are you going to have anything in the way of a boiler system? No, you're just basically using your panels?
Yeah, we're not sure we're gonna put in floor heating now, so if we started again, we would put the concrete floor here with in-floor heating in the floor. Now that this commitment's been made, if we keep this floor, we're not gonna put in floor heating. We may put something like here, we were here last week, we had a guy talking about radiant heat, got me thinking about it again. But
Did it get you thinking about the walls at all? Interior walls? I think might be a good.
I'm going to have to excuse myself. I think we've sort of run past the time that I had allotted for us tonight. Certainly I'd take 5 more minutes if you guys have any other questions on things I can help with.
Thanks very
any
much for
questions
coming.
from the viewing audience?
I appreciate your patience.